There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. All right, everybody, welcome to Hard Money once again. Here's Sauga 960, John Scholes, and the boss, Darren Long, is there, Delta Harbour with you. Anytime you want to reach out and either start investing off the hop through the e-store or just make a phone call and get some more information, learn a little about hard assets, gold and silver, and how they can hedge your portfolio. If you haven't started this yet, it is high time to do so. If you need any more economic markers than to get off your butt and start investing in some of these hard metals, this would be a good time. The best time was last week. The next best time is right now. So reach out to Darren and the guys to get that happening. It's really simple. DeltaHarbor.com, 1-877-323-GOLD. Easy phone number there to remember. Again, online, the e-store. If you're making a purchase or want to get your feet wet with a little physical metals, the e-store is a good place to start if you're not making a huge, massive purchase, right? That and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Delta Harbour is the place you want to go as well. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all Delta Harbour with you. So, Darren, how are you, pal? Good to see you today. What's going on?
Well, John, I thought we'd start this week by focusing on talking a little bit about wealth diversification. And the theme, the idea of this week's show is why it's so important to kind of just take a different approach, and we're not going to focus so much on the macro financial things this week. Yep. We kind of did a question and answer show a couple of weeks ago.
Loved it.
It was great. It worked out really well. We got a lot of good response from that. And I'm a fan of talking about how what's behind the headlines impacts our wealth and our well-being. So I'm trying to focus on it. And like I say every week, John, the story is still unfolding right before our very eyes. And I think what's needed, what's necessary in this particular show this week is to first off understand that gold and silver are undoubtedly among the most underappreciated assets on the face of this planet, tangible hard assets on the face of this planet. And it's really what it comes down to for me is nothing more than just doing what we're doing. It's passing on this great information. It's sharing the performance records of both gold and silver. It's telling people about the story of gold and silver, and knowing that the good folks of Sauga 960 are getting exposed to this, but also that the people who are listening worldwide on the web and everywhere else are getting some information. And really just, it's cyclical, Johnny, just returning back to what it used to be. Reasons for ownership, reasons why wealth diversification is an important task. It's something we can't be passive about. And today's show, I just thought we'd talk about, hey, how easy is it to buy gold and silver? Is it really that hard? Like, what are the steps involved? How do I actually get it done? Is it easy to sell gold and silver when it's physical bar and coin? Who owns gold and silver, and why would I be buying it? And really just to focus on the mentality of those that support us in the financial world, in terms of our bankers, our accountants, our planners, advisors, and all those that refuse to admit that gold and silver are strategically excellent diversifiers of wealth. And in this day and age, when we don't know what the future is holding, very necessary in our portfolios.
We always talk about, discuss any time that includes gold and silver ownership. That's always part and parcel of what we do. But, today we're going to focus, like you said, on the idea of new pass. And by new pass, what I mean, Darren, is bringing to our attention the details of the market and the stories behind the headlines that impact our wealth and well-being, obviously. So let's focus on silver and gold, the actual metals themselves, on today's show. Some new ideas. Where do you want to go from this one? Because I know things are unfolding right before our eyes. I saw it was one of the financial channels this morning on TV. They're finally in the U.S. are finally fessing up to how big the inflation is. And it's like they're saying, oh, no, it's 7 or 8 and 9%. It's like, wow, last week you were saying 2. But that's what we always talk about on the show, right? So where do you want to focus and cover on today?
Well, I think the next thing that we should probably talk about is why so few people actually own physical gold and silver. And It's a poignant question, John, because it's hard to put a finger on it. I do have some opinions. I think it's first important to understand only about 1 or 2% of the entirely global managed asset base of all investments have exposure to either physical gold and silver and paper gold and silver. So only 1 to 2%. So in no way, shape, or form are we at the top of a bull market, despite the fact that gold and silver performed so well. And I think it stems back to the 90s, John. And we had this mentality change that we went and that we underwent from the 80s to the 90s, in which a lot of us started having less and less money, fiat money in our pockets, and we transformed our wealth into plastic. So we had the invention of the Interact card, for example, and we had our bankers telling us it's more convenient, it's safer, it's going to let us transact easier. But what science has told us since that time is that, in fact, it broke down so many barriers that we overspend, and our appetite to overspend led to an expansion throughout the 90s and into the early part of this century of credit. And that's, again, a change in mentality from what we saw prior to the 90s, which was if we didn't have it in our pockets, we didn't spend it. If we didn't make it on a weekly basis, we didn't spend it. If the house was outside of our range of affordability, we didn't buy the house. Yep. But the mentality change has become, well, let's worry about it in the future. I'll take on another job, or I'm going to get more pay, or I'm expecting that, using the credit card will mean that I could expand my credit that's available to me. I will use my equity, and I'll use HELOCs and all kinds of things. And that mentality really started to change. So we went from thinking about physical assets, which up until the 80s were in part physical gold and silver, even if it was just a coin in my pocket or coins in the bank or collectibles that I put aside for the kids, to this new paper mentality, which meant banks, planners, advisors, and things of that nature had more control on us and could say and do more with things like credit expansion and money expansion. And our governments made it easy for them to do that. And, the bottom line is, John, you can't print gold and silver. There is no third-party liability like we have in paper assets, whether we own stocks, bonds, cash. We always have third-party liability. Paper alternatives to gold and silver are still mining stocks, ETFs, etc., but nothing actually replaces the physical nature of gold and silver. And it also means with this only 1 to 2% of the entire world of investments having exposure to gold and silver, that overall, this is a very early part of the stage of the normal development of a bull market. And in gold and silver, we expect to see ownership increase dramatically as it has begun this year and over last during COVID. This is a very exciting time and a moment.
It's interesting, though, off the hop, you said, I think it was 1 or 2% have physical assets, physical gold and silver as part of their wealth strategy and their portfolio. So what's it look like? How does the landscape change if even 5 or 6% of the population all decide to jump in the boat?
Well, right now, John, we can't fulfill that. We are unable as a global population with the mining we currently do, with what we know comes out of the ground on a yearly basis. We can't fulfill that kind of demand right now. We couldn't double demand and expect for it to be fulfilled without the prices heading substantially higher in both gold and silver. And there's simply not enough gold and silver ounces on the face of the planet, especially in silver. We're in, let's say, the last 20 years, about 16 of them have been net deficit and required us to use all of our recycled, unused, hoarded product that simply was available to us in bulk. We thought of silver as the poorer or younger brother of gold, and we never thought about there being a lack of available product because it was just so plentiful. It was just used everywhere it needed to be, and we never thought of it as being valuable at all. But the fact is, this is very cyclical, and there's a ton of new demand coming online. We'll talk about it in the show as we progress here.
We'll take a short break, and we'll get a magnifying glass and actual how much silver is out there and around for availability for practical reasons or for investment purposes. But we'll take a short break before that. Reaching out, simple, 1-877-323-GOLD, deltaharbor.com, harbor with a U, and online at YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. Simply Delta Harbor. You want to go to those social media outlets as well. They've got their own channels. We'll pick it up here. Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960 and on YouTube. If you follow the video cast as well, you can go back in the archive, learn a lot more, or simply call Darren And Rob and the team, anytime to sit down, have a chat. There's no obligation. Just educate yourself, right? 1-877-323-GOLD. That is how you do it. DeltaHarbor.com online. And while you're there as well, you can click on the e-store. If you've already got your mind made up and started investing, you get some of those physical assets into your portfolio as a hedge or otherwise. It's always a good time to do that, especially now. So we talked about the amount of silver, the amount of metals above, if all of a sudden there's a doubling of people who want the physical metals, not paper, not ETFs, not all that stuff, hypothecated gold. We're talking physical metals. There is no big stockpile of silver anywhere, big clump of it, sitting in some vault, the opening of a Michael Bay movie. I mean, that isn't there. Is that what you're saying?
It is what I'm saying. It exists nowhere in the world. There is no free hoard that could be thrown into the world and used anywhere. It doesn't exist. I mean, there's product that's spoken for, that's in vaults around the world, and some are larger than others. There are a couple of entities that do have in and around 300 million ounces of silver, and there's some entities that have large stockpiles of gold, like central banks. But there is no stockpile, no hoard of old product that can come to light if prices go higher. And just recently, it's only been in the last 4 or 5 months that actual mining firms, big blue chip mining firms, have started to try and stockpile a little bit, because they just don't believe that the price should be this low, and they're sick and tired of waiting for prices to go higher when the costs of pulling that out of the ground have gone astronomically higher, as you said off the top, with inflationary pressures. So the whole system, in the time that I've been part of gold and silver in the last 18, 19 years, went from being in part a recycled system where we were buying and selling. It was coming through. We'd get older bars and older types of product that would flow through the system, to now being, since the onset of the pandemic, a just-in-time system. And that's just the way it's been. The ratio of buying to selling has changed dramatically. When I first started in this business, we would get 50-50. For every buyer, there was a seller. And basically you saw that change. And by 2008, it was around 4 or 5 to 1. So for every 4 or 5 buyers, there was only one seller. And then by 2011, that had risen to around 30 to 1. For every 30 buyers, there was one seller. And now we're at over 100 to 1. I mean, wow. I don't even recall the last. I think we've had somebody come in and sell product once in the last year. It's ridiculous. There's no flow through product at all in the system. Everything that we order is brand new, coming from the various fabricators around the world, and it's all gone to fulfill this tiny 1 to 2% of world demand. Jeez, that's man. It. 1 to 2% of all global managed assets have exposure to physical or paper. And when you break that down even further, it's unbelievable that silver's remaining at $22, $23 an ounce. It's ridiculous. It's so insanely stupid that any smart investor, would recognize that you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that if you took everything out of the equation and kept only the factor of supply and demand in, meaning take away the debt problems we have as a society, take away inflation, take away stockpile shortages, take away credit crunches and expansion, take away money printing, all those problems that are existing in the system right now globally that manifest themselves as triggers to push price higher in these quality assets that we use to protect wealth. There'd still be a rising of price long term due to its usages, especially in silver, all by itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in the meantime, as people may start to panic with these words, they might be interested in starting a portfolio with you guys and getting some of these physical assets. How do you get your hands on it? Open up that portfolio with Delta Harbour. We're going to revisit this, of course, a couple times during the hour, but just to set the table.
Well, if you want to own physical gold and silver, it starts by hitting the website, which is deltaharbor.com. You can buy directly and have it shipped conveniently to your home or office. And we can do that for you with relative ease, no problem there. You can use our e-store. It's very, very functional and easy to use. And of course, we're always available for questions about product types and selling questions, buying questions, storage questions. But to take that a step further, in light of saying storage, you can also use a vault for storage, whether that's your own safety deposit box at a bank or whether you want to use our vaulting facility that we're partnered with alongside some of the larger institutions in Canada, as well as the Mint that uses the same storage facility we do. that is not a problem. We can set up a storage vaulting account, and you can put your gold and silver in there, buy and sell by phone call, have complete liquidity, make changes, add, subtract, and also go to visit and audit and see your product, which is something that some clients do from time to time. In addition to that, put it into a registered account. John, we talk about it every week. TFSA, use up your TFSA. It's there, and I'm amazed at how few people actually use all of the space that they have in their RSPs and their TFSAs. It's there for the taking. You can put physical gold and silver in there. We can walk you through that. Or the collateral financing options. If people want to buy gold and silver, but they don't want to use all their powder, we have the option of financing up to 80% of the purchase. So if you think gold and silver are going much higher here, and you want to own those assets, I can show you how to get an 80% discount on the price of silver or gold. And that is also easy to do, but it all starts with giving us a call at the number or going to the website.
Again, 1-877-323-GOLD and deltaharbor.com. The storage thing is always something people, all those bullet points you just made about the e-store, we get that. We get the registered accounts. We keep enlightening people in that regard. And the collateral financing as well. But as far as the storage is concerned, what the advantage of me saying, okay, Darren, I'm just going to keep it under my bed. Why do I have to have it at your storage facility? What's the attraction for that?
Well, first off, it's not safe under your bed. It's not insured, and it presents a security risk for those that might otherwise like to own that themselves. And I hear about it every week. And believe me, there is a lot that does not make it to the media's eyes, because these aren't interesting stories. But every week we get an email from our security, from our insurance companies, saying we're talking about somebody having bullion in their house or home or business or office and it getting stolen. It's not safe, it's not insured, and I wouldn't do it if I were you. So storage is the next great option. If storage was expensive or costly, I'd say don't do it. But it's easy. It's 1% under normal circumstances, 1.25% in the registered accounts. And it's of the total metal value, and it's charged on a monthly basis. It means that your product's liquid, it's safe, it's insured. You can go visit it. You get your serial numbers, you get the bar inventory or coin inventory sent to you, and rest assured that it's there in your name. So this isn't something that's in our name and you're part of it. No, it's in your name. It's the account that's in your name with an account number, your name on that account. And you can make changes to it at will as you desire to do so with either gold, silver, platinum, or palladium products that we offer.
Well, I mean, and I know we have to break here in a minute, but you mentioned, do what you want at your leisure, at your call. But that's another thing. I would imagine it's a lot simpler to, if it ever came to the point where you do want to sell some of your holdings, some of your silver, you don't have to schlep it into the office from underneath your bed or your garage. I mean, it's a phone call away if it's stored, right? It's not, you literally keep your hands clean in doing that, right?
Well, it is right. And it is bulky. It is heavy, hard to move for the average person. I mean, we're professionals. So, I mean, we're set up to take care of this, whether it's an armored vehicle. And I'll talk later about an example that I brought today with me about that, or whether it's just standard delivery. We're set up to do that. We're set up to move it for you. And not only that, John, I might add to this conversation the importance of understanding that lots of people listening to this show might like to have some gold and silver, not only as part of their wealth diversification here in Canada, but strategically placed in other parts of the world where they might conduct business or be traveling to. So if you're listening to this show and you'd like to have bullion stored overseas, or maybe perhaps down south in the US or Cayman Islands or other places, there is an easy way to do that. We're set up to do that. And it's an option that all of our clients have, which means it's easier to acquire your bullion if you're overseas, or have some gold in Europe or in Asia if you're over there traveling frequently or with your family. That is something that we do on a regular basis. And that means it's accessible to you and your family there in those points. And strategically, that for wealth means you have unfettered access and liquidity in another part of the world, which you would otherwise not have with your paper assets here in Canada.
More of that conversation coming up. Quick break, though. 1-877-323-GOLD, the number to reach out, and deltaharbor.com. We'll continue Hard Money on Sauga 960. 1-877-323-GOLD. Welcome back. Hard Money. That is the number anytime you want to reach out to Darren and his team. Rob there as well. It is deltaharbor.com. That's Harbor with a U, because this investment is all about you. Educate yourself. And once you're educated, you feel comfortable You don't even have to leave your computer. eStore is a good place to start up to $5,000. You want to get a taste of it and get that investment going. Again, physical metals you can hold and drop on your foot and cause pain. That is what we're talking about here. Keep it at home, maybe, maybe not, but a storage might be an advantage as well. Registered accounts are used. And I know we're going to get into the usages, because I know the use of silver is really beyond what people's knowledge and scope is, Darren. I love talking about this. But, just before that, we were talking about, not keeping it home because it's a security risk. And so get it into your storage facility for the minimal price that it costs to do that. You clean your hands of it. And the problem with keeping stuff at home for a lot of people, especially in this day and age, is they are tempted to get that and throw it up on Facebook and Instagram. Not a good thing to do. If you've got silver and gold, take a picture on your kitchen counter and throw that up in social media. Can't do that if it's in storage, can you? I mean, that is a huge risk, but you've seen people do that, right? Because they want to, they're proud of it. Like, that's
John, all
insane.
the time. It happens all the time. I belong to 30 plus groups on Facebook where we share information about services and product updates and things of that nature. And not a day goes by where people don't flaunt what they own. This type of wealth in physical gold and silver is meant to be private, John. Yeah. It's meant to be shown and known by no one. And it's one of the last bastions of private wealth that we have in the world. And although we certainly adhere to every policy that's out there from regulatory bodies and things of that nature, I'm talking about privacy in terms of not telling anyone that you have this, because nobody needs to know, especially if you have it at home, which is another reason why you put it in storage. And that's, for us, I mean, at least for those that are spending larger amounts and investing in this product of silver or gold or both, this is the common sense thing that ties us all together, that binds us all together, that you have unfettered access, you have liquidity, complete liquidity to buy and sell, and that you're able to put multiple products in there and store them appropriately. And if you've got 10,000 ounces of silver, you've got a whack of silver. Each 1,000 ounces is about 68 pounds. It's 680 pounds of silver sitting around. It's not like you can just get up and move it. It takes a lot. But when it's done by professionals with the right services in mind, shipments get out overnight. I mean, we can move 5, 6, 7, 10,000 ounces of silver overnight and have it at its new destination by the next day.
Yeah, well, it's like you said off the top there, perfectly said, man. If you don't show it, they don't know it, and that's the way you want to keep it. But silver, gold is a little bit different, but silver, very much an industrial metal. Doesn't mean it's not an investment metal. It sure as heck is. And the uses, I know you're going to go through this laundry list. I always find this fascinating. What, beside the obvious, I mean, people know that it's maybe in some dental applications, they may rings and necklaces and stuff like that. Sure. But what else? Where else are we seeing silver, which makes it such a good commodity?
Well, for me, it's the $1 billion point. We're all looking for undervalued assets. We're all looking for value. And I think most people, after hearing what I'm about to say, if they really consider themselves to be investors and they have disposable income on hand, they would run, not walk, to ownership of silver once they know what silver is actually used in. From the demand side of the equation, silver is used, as you said, John, primarily as an industrial metal, first and foremost, while gold is primarily a monetary metal. Doesn't mean that that's not interchangeable and that silver doesn't have monetary demand as well. It does. But in this day and age, right now, currently, it's primarily used as an industrial metal. In silver, you actually have a metal in which there are more patents pending for industrial usages than any other precious metal in existence today.
Wow. Okay.
And if we break that down into actual usages, the place we start every time we talk about usages and demand is electronics. Think about your tablets, computers, your phones, your flat panel TVs. Doesn't matter what the technology is, microwaves, ovens, fridges. It's found in the membrane switches of almost all these types of electronics. It's not recycled. I mean, how many phones have you gone through as a listener of this show right now? How many cell phones have you used in your lifespan? I think the last time we did this, my count was around 10 or so. I have never, because I'm more concerned with the protection of my property and my intellectual data. I don't give my cell phones away. I don't put them in the garbage. I don't recycle them. If anything, I put them away. They're in storage and I keep them. But a lot of people have done that and think, how many people have actually recycled the silver in there? It's a small amount, but add up the billions and billions of cell phones worldwide that we go through every year. Nobody's recycling all that product on a large scale. So, I mean, that in and of itself is an amazing reason to own silver because it's in all of those things. antibacterial agent. It's used in bandages for processing burn victims now, and it promotes speedier recovery in those burn victims. They have even made bandages now that when they are moistened, they actually create a small enough electrical reaction that they work better to repair damaged skin and wounds. And you'll find it in antibacterial ointments and creams for the skin and body on a regular basis now. It's found in clothing, sweat wicking technology. It was used in military applications for clothing so that they could go longer periods of time and not worry about bacteria setting in to smell up the clothing, and they could get more usage out of in between missions and so on and so forth. That technology has been sold to the world now. That's how we get sweat wicking technology.
Yeah.
In laundry detergents used to keep bacteria out of the laundry cycle, right? It's in the liners of washing machines now that you can see around the world. Solar technology, huge, John. The growing trends of green energy bring solar technology to the forefront. It's used in every single solar panel made on the face of this earth. And right now, that's around 2 to 3 grams of silver in every one. As we get more efficient, perhaps that number even goes higher because silver is still priced so low relative to its total value that people are going to use more of it if they can promote a better product. So that's growing huge all over the world. EV technology and battery technology. Think of the electric car revolution we're in right now. It's huge, and it's so important to recognize that silver is in every single electric vehicle out there and in the batteries that they use. So that's not going to change anytime soon. In batteries, think of hearing aids and think of primarily watches. This is where you get silver oxide batteries, which are even more efficient than lithium ion batteries. Military applications, water purification, wood preservation. It's used as a catalyst in heavy machinery. It's used in bearings, especially in space applications, in large industrial applications, in flight, jewelry, and the list goes on and on. However, there is so little silver used in each of these applications, John, that it doesn't matter if the price was even to jump to $50, $60, $70. It's going to remain inelastic in its demand because it's necessary in all of these applications. And with relatively small supply and relatively inelastic demand, as a listener of this show, think about where the price of silver goes in 10 years, 15 years. It's a pittance to pay when you've looked at the average overall. And we're going to talk about it when we come back in the next segment. What have silver and gold done actually, and what is their performance like? But both metals are fantastic for so many industrial applications. But silver, hands down, the usages just blow me away. And another reason why I'm owning silver long term.
And people love to hear that, but they also like to think, hey, Darren, this thing makes money for me, right? We'll discuss that over the long term as well with your holdings of gold and silver. But to reach out and continue that conversation on your own time, Darren or the rest of the guys, 1-877-323-SILVER, 1-877-323 is where you want to go for that phone, or 323 Gold rather is where you want to call. DeltaHarbor.com, that's Harbor with a U, because always this investment is about you. Get it started, make the phone call, and we'll continue. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back to Hard Money. John Scholes and Darren Long, of course, is educating you every week, inspiring you to make that call. Go online to DeltaHarbor.com. And even before you buy a single ounce of gold or silver, get educated, have a conversation, and learn. 1-877-323-GOLD. That is how you do that. The phone number, 1-877-323-GOLD. DeltaHarbor.com, and make sure to check out all their social media channels, be it Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, simply Delta Harbor with a U. So we mentioned this as well. Silver, fantastic. It's in everything. It's in my glasses. It's in this pen I'm holding, the microphone I'm talking through, the headphones I got on. Okay, fine, good, but both metals have proven worthy over the last couple of decades to make money. Obviously, they can do that. And this is what people really like, is it not, Darren? That's why they're doing this.
Yeah, it's not only important to talk about the fact, John, that these metals are used everywhere, and demand is great, and they are great protectors of wealth and insurance policy and all that. It made a ton of money for people. And when I got into this, I spent the first few years second guessing myself on many occasions. Did I do the right thing? Did I make the right decision? Investment banking might have been a step away from this. Could I have gone there and down that line? But the fact is that in 18 years, I've witnessed so much change and so much value in the ownership of this. And we talked about today's theme, which is why wealth diversification is so important, that you can't but help have these assets as part of a well-diversified portfolio. I mean, let's let the numbers do the talking, John. Gold, which has risen from the lows of around 250 to its current price of 1780, or about a gain of 600% in the time that I've been in this business, is a compounded return of around 10 to 11% per year. Silver, which has risen from lows of around $3.80 up to its current price of around $22.20, or about 485% rise in its value, is a compound annual return of roughly 9.5%. I mean, this is insane. You just don't get this anywhere else. And for people not to talk about this is ridiculous. It's a metal which is easy to own in both gold and silver, and neither of these totals take into consideration any buying or selling that an individual might have done. These are not day traded metals. This is not the way we think of physical gold and silver. These are long-term holds, but we get these amazing peaks which make these gains look like something on steroids. So when you're thinking of gold and silver in small batches, 5-6 months at a time, you can get 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, even 1,000% higher in price. And that has happened in the last 15, 16, 17 years. And 4 times since I've been here prior to last year. Now with 2020, where silver went from a low of $11 and change up to $30 in less than 5 months, and gold from its lows of around $11.50 all the way up to $2,000. It's insane to think that people are actually missing out on this opportunity with only 1 to 2% of all globally managed assets exposed to gold and silver. How can you say no if you really want to take care of your future, if you really want to protect your wealth and grow your wealth? These are money makers too. All you got to do is buy them and hold them. You don't have to buy and sell them. It's not day trading. It's simple. It's not rocket science, John.
Yeah, there's no charts to watch on a daily basis and talking to your advisor. You just buy it and hang out with it and leave it and let it do its thing over the long term. So how do we get some of these wonderful metals into our portfolios, Darren?
Well, if you've been listening and this is for you, start by giving us a call. Use the number you throw out there, John, or the website, deltaharbor.com. And we have a chat feature on there. If you're a little shy, cool, you just want to ask some questions about anything you heard on the show or anything about our products, you can use the chat feature. It's always turned on. Somebody will pick up and reply, or set an appointment. Come by, sit down, talk with us, ask those important questions. We're not here to plan all of your wealth any more than we're going to be your financial planners or advisors. That's not our role. We are experts in the acquisition and liquidation and ownership, storage of physical metals. And we just happen to be part of something that's been fantastic for so many countless thousands of people across Ontario, Canada, and globally as our client base grows. And you can put it into storage. You can take it home with you, put it into a TFSA or RSP, or even use the option of financing, which is underutilized right now. With silver so low in price, is a perfect example of how we can take up to 80% of your purchase and finance it. Yeah, you're holding it back for a rainy day. In other words, you're keeping up to 80% of your money in your pocket. I mean, you're owning an asset. It's physical, gets stored. You can see it, touch it, hold it, make changes to it, buy and sell. And the best part about it is you didn't have to risk your own money. You risk somebody else's money. Come and go as you wish. It's open-ended. You can always lay out that money held back, but getting 80% more value or bang for your buck means you're paying 80% less for the metal to begin with. And that means right now you could own 1,000 ounces of silver, which typically would cost you around, let's say, I don't know, around 35 to 36, 37,000, depending on what form you're buying it in. You could lay out as little as 8,000 Canadian right now and own and control that product. And you get to make the decisions about buying and selling. You get to profit from it. If you were to see silver move up around $6.50 to $7, just to a lousy $30, been there so many times. It moved up to just that. You double your money using that approach. And if you love that type of thing, if you love that type of investment where you can use other people's money, you get more bang for your buck, or if you want to try something different and it makes sense to you and you have the extra disposable income and you've looked through the risk side of owning gold and silver, hey, this might be something you can do easily with gold and with silver.
Again, that number 1-877-323-GOLD. Always advise you to give Darren and the team a call. Just have a conversation. There's no commitment there. You just want to learn more, right? You can do that. DeltaHarbor.com, Harbor with a U, DeltaHarbor.com. And while you're there, Darren, give me a few details before we take a short break about the e-store. I want to talk a little bit more about that because I really think this is the cool thing for people to do. Why? Because it's the easiest point A to point B contact for people to start investing on their own, right?
Now, the e-store is something new for us, and it's not that we're late to the game or anything like that. We had a different system, a different model, if you will, up until just recently, whereby we were doing primarily consultations, and then from there would stem the decision to either own some gold, some silver, or both, in what forms, and so on and so forth. We realized that there is an importance to having the convenience for, let's say, first-time buyers, those that want to start with something smaller. So we added the e-store, and its functionality is as simple as any store you've been to. This is just shopping from home, and it's the convenience, especially during the pandemic. We recognize the importance of having this option available, and when you go online, you can shop online. You can set us up as a bill payment option. You can easily e-transfer the funds. You can do TD to TD. We bank with TD, so it's easy to do. But owning gold and silver and getting started with something that's a little more affordable budget-wise, the e-store is a perfect example. That all the products there, pricing is there, and I think you'll find that we're very, very well priced, competitively priced. So if you're a comparison shopper, e-store, perfect example of why you use it. And if you just want to buy something, you don't really want feedback from our team, and you don't need it, you just want to buy it and have it shipped. Again, the e-store, ease of usage. That's why we created it. It's meant to be easy, and keep it as simple as possible. Get it sent right to your home or business, and you can start that by going to the website, deltaharbor.com.
Yeah, it's always a good place to start the e-store. It's like dipping your toe in the pool. Then when you realize how warm it is, you just you dive right in, and that's often what happens. People continue on. They go beyond the confines of the e-store, and they start scheduling those consultations and making more of a bigger investment for sure. But again, the phone calls where it's going to begin and should begin. 1-877-323-GOLD is how you do that. DeltaHarbor.com. More to cover, but we got to take a short break, and we'll get right back into it. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. Hard Money. A few minutes to go here. Thank you so much for joining us this week. To reach out anytime after the show, 1-877-323-GOLD. That will put you in touch with Darren's crew, Darren himself. If you want to talk and learn about the investment, which maybe you have not traveled down that road thus far, good time to do it. 1-877-323-GOLD. DeltaHarbor.com. That is Harbor with a U. Once you're on the website, again, you can learn lots. You can spend some time there on your own. Click on the e-store and even grab some silver and gold to start your investment right there and now. But why, Darren? Why are we less likely now to consider gold and silver as a diversifier of wealth? What's the mentality there?
Well, I think the question is, how do we define diversification in wealth? And we do so by allowing our planners, our advisors, our bank managers, our accountants, and those with the know-how to understand markets to help us. And we've allowed them to define what diversification is. But 90% of the time, that means we're only going to be owning stocks, bonds, and cash in our wealth portfolio, and maybe real estate. More recently, of course, because I read this week, not to digress too much, John, but unfortunately, speculative investors have now purchased and make up a larger percentage of real estate owners than ever before in history. So the next time you're looking at buying that house and it's your primary house, you're probably buying it from somebody who's speculatively investing in real estate, which, hey, I know we did it before and we do it again, and we'll do it again after this is all over and said and done, but it's a dangerous time to be owning it. But I digress. So traditionally, we've allowed all of those institutions to define what wealth diversification is. I think it has to do with personal choice, John. We've allowed people, as we said earlier in the show, to go through these phases of change in wealth, like the one from the 80s to the 90s, from when we used to have money in our pocket and spend only what we could afford, to this transformed culture and way of thinking that says, hey, if it doesn't matter if we can't afford it, put it on credit. Somewhere down the road, we'll be able to pay that credit off, but we never do. That is perpetual. And it goes with us to the grave, unfortunately. And it's the only way we get rid of it. In some cases, we don't even get rid of it, then it gets passed on. But the fact is that, we're passive. We're passive. Canada is just a passive place for wealth. It has been that way for a long time, and we tend to, using stocks, bonds, and cash, think that we are well diversified. And that's the problem. We've been taught to think that those are part of a great diversification strategy. But here's the truth. Here's the truth. In 2005, a company called Ibbotson and Associates, they completed a study on diversification in wealth, and they looked at gobs of data. This data spanned as far back as 1971 and went all the way up to 2004.
Okay.
And they unequivocally had a number of very important findings about that wealth. And what they wanted to do was determine what defines diversification. What is it that we do? So in fact, they did confirm that the most likely way to diversify wealth was in all paper. So when you think of your wealth, don't think of it in terms of being diversified. It's all paper. It's mutual funds, right? We have our registered accounts. Yep. It's mining stocks, it's bonds, all paper vehicles that can be manipulated very easily, that aren't physical, that can die tomorrow, that can be changed, altered, have third-party liability. But these are all the diversifiers that we have in our portfolio. We don't really think outside that box. And what they found, the most important part of that data, is that they found gold and silver were unequivocally the most negatively correlated assets to stocks, bonds, and cash. Meaning, if you were truly going to be diversified, in order to do so, you needed to own physical gold and silver, because paper gold and silver, mining stocks, ETFs, various other paper ways of owning gold and silver, A, only give you exposure to gold and silver. You don't own the actual asset. And B, they move the same way as stocks and bonds. So when there's a breakdown or a meltdown, economically speaking, they all drop in value. They all lose value. So they don't really tend to really fully diversify. Could they definitely add diversification within your portfolio? Sure, but they don't give you the most well-rounded definition of diversification. So gold and silver, as it turns out, by Ibbotson Associates, is in fact the greatest way to diversify your wealth portfolio, and physical, in the gold and the bar in coin form, like we do. And that's just part of the reason why I sleep, eat, and breathe gold and silver, why I wake up every morning thinking about ways we can better this industry, why we created the method of ownership in registered accounts with our partner Questrade to allow you to put it into TFSAs and RSPs, why I was at that very first meeting with Questrade where that happened. And both gold and silver are tangible, unlike paper, right? I can take gold and silver with me. I can pass it on to future generations. I can move it around the world. It's a strategic asset. Both have confidence of central bankers, right? We talked about a couple of weeks ago, who owns silver and gold? Russians, Americans, India, China, all these central banks, the Italian central bank, the French central bank, the German central bank, Swiss, Sweden, you name it. You know who doesn't? Our central bank. Shame on them, but that's another story. And again, I don't want to digress too far down that rabbit hole, but gold has the confidence of central bankers. They simply choose not to tell us this, right? Both have ease of use. They're simple to buy and sell. They're very liquid assets. They're easily stored. You can move them easily, right? We do this. This is what we do. We are experts in this area. And all of this equates to one simple thing, which is that gold and silver are the most efficient and best ways to diversify your overall wealth strategy. It's something that, John, shouldn't be part of just yours or mine, Rob's or our other partners or anybody here. Should be part of every single wealth strategy that exists today. And we should get back to what our uncles, what our grandfathers and their fathers did before them, which was to always have gold and silver as part of their wealth.
1-877-323-GOLD. That's the number to get convinced to have a little more of a chat with Darren and the team, if you're not already, and start this physical asset investment for yourself. It's that time of year, brother. We're getting close anyway. How about gifts, family, friends, in the form of gifts? You do that as well. Encouraged, yeah.
Everybody's listening, John, and they've tuned in the last few weeks. They've run amok on our inventory because we are sending out holiday seasonal gifts like crazy. Hanukkah was a big thing. A lot of very, very important events this time of year. A lot of festivals and very important seasonal holiday related activities, celebrations, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and all kinds of things happening. Lots of other celebrations, and all of them can be represented in the way that we suggest, which is to own gold and silver. So of course, our website's a great place to start. Buy a small coin for somebody, buy a, half ounce of gold or an ounce of gold and give it to somebody you love. And it's a meaningful way to show them your affection by giving them something that stood the test of time. It's been around for thousands of years, and we'll make it special for everyone. We take personal requests, John. We can have it packaged a certain way. We can have it sent with a letter that deems why it was sent, or something that's special for each individual. But again, that's what Delta is all about, individualizing the customer experience. And of course, we suggest doing this all the time. And John, I know we're tight on time, but as well as talking about giving gifts like gold and silver, this time of year, I want to remind people as we come to the end of today's show how important it is to give to those in need. The temperatures are dropping. There are people that don't have food on the table, John. We talked about inflation. This is hurting the average person. This is not just the homeless or people in need. Every family that I know could use an extra gift here and there, but there are a lot that won't tell you, that have too much pride. Give to your local food banks, give to those less fortunate this time of year, and make gold and silver part of that tradition.
And that'll set the table nicely for moving on and reaching out to Darren and his crew about this investment. So do so. The number, again, 1-877-323-GOLD. DeltaHarbor.com is online where you want to go. Harbor with a U, of course. That is how we do it, because this investment is all about you. And then, of course, social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well. Simply go to Delta Harbor. And on the website, the e-store as well. Start exploring on your own. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Hard Money on Sauga 960.